What's up everyone, I hope you're all doing well. So I was kind of bored the other day, and as I was browsing through my DVDs to find something to watch, I finally decided on Alien vs Predator, as I hadn't seen it for a little while now. It must have been at least 3 or 4 years ago the last time I saw it. And I had watched AVP 2 a couple of months back when I was doing my research for my video about the wolf predator, when I was making that video. So when I was looking for something to watch the other evening, I thought, why not watch the first film? And I know the film does garner a lot of criticism from fans, and people tend to focus a lot on the negative aspects of it, and they do have a lot of valid points in their criticism of that film, such as it clashing with previously established lore, not so much on the Predator side, but mainly on the Alien side, where the whole point of those movies was to, at all costs, do not allow the Xenomorphs to reach Earth, as due to how unrelenting and invasive and aggressive they are, they would do unimaginable damage to our planet and civilization as we know it. But then Alien vs Predator comes along, and then it's just like, oh right, I guess there were Xenomorphs on Earth all along then, but it didn't really matter. And other points of criticism include such things as the hit and miss special effects, not to mention the absolutely god-awful Predator face designs from that film. What were they thinking? But rewatching it, I do still agree with those points, but at the same time, I also thought there were a lot of parts about the movie that were actually pretty decent. It has an okay plot, and I like the isolated location of an Antarctic island, where the characters are miles away from any kind of help or backup, just like in Alien, Aliens, Alien 3 and Predator, and then later on in Predators, Prometheus and Alien Covenant. That's my favourite kind of setting for these kind of films, and the characters are all professionals like scientists and explorers and stuff, no teenagers, no pizza boys or anything like that. It has pretty decent actors and dialogue. Everyone acts fairly realistically, like they would if they were in that situation. There is some joking around and stuff at the start, like people do in real life, but that all pretty much ends once they realise the gravity of the situation they found themselves in. I think if this film were made nowadays instead, even though people are dying all around them and they all know they probably aren't going to survive, the characters would all still be screwing around and making quips and stuff like that. But back then, before Marvel came along, people didn't really do that in films. They used to act a bit more realistically. And it also has a good atmosphere, some pretty cool action and some tense moments as well, and a good musical score too, kind of resembling the soundtrack from Aliens a little bit. The pacing is also good, with it taking time to introduce us to the main characters at the start, but then still getting to the point and getting us to the main premise fairly quickly. I really do believe that the film has a good foundation, and that with a few tweaks here and there, it could have been way better and a lot closer to what fans were hoping for. I managed to come up with 8 different ideas that, in my opinion, I think would make the movie awesome. So the changes I think could be made to this film that would turn it from an okay film into an awesome film are: Number 1, instead of being set on Earth and in present day, make it another planet and in the future. Now, I did say earlier that I do like the isolated Antarctic wasteland setting, but that it conflicts with the Alien movies. So what I do instead of this is that you can pretty much keep almost everything exactly the same, but they could just say it's an ice planet instead, so you could keep the aesthetic unchanged, but it'd make more sense than there just being xenomorphs on Earth hundreds of years before the events of Alien. And the reason why they'd be able to breathe on the planet is that it's a planet the Predators use, so they would have already made the atmosphere breathable. And since we don't see any cities or civilizations or anything in the film, the time period it's set in wouldn't really disrupt anything. All you'd have to do is change how they get to Antarctica, or the ice planet in this case. So instead of there being a helicopter and an icebreaker ship, just change those to a spaceship. It'd be pretty much the same as the start of Prometheus, I suppose, and you could even change the modern assault rifles the humans have to pulse rifles for member berries if you want. And then just tidy up the loose ends here and there, like the satellite over Antarctica, just make that a space survey drone or something, and them thinking the pyramid could be the first ever human civilization, to it just being some kind of weird extraterrestrial pyramid they detect on the planet and they want to go explore it. Next up at number 2 is a very common complaint, and that is that it should have more gore. So looking at my DVD, it is rated as 15 instead of 18 like these films traditionally used to be rated as, and it has very little human gore or blood or anything really. The version I watched was the extended version on DVD, and I can recall literally only 2 moments where there's blood. That's human blood, not counting predator or alien blood. When Scar finishes off that drilling team bloke, we see a little bit of blood spray, and then when Colin Salmon gets killed with the combi stick and some blood runs down there, and I think that's it. I heard that in some kind of later release, I think it had some CGI blood added here and there, but I only own the standard first DVD release. Overall, it is very tame compared to, say, the first Alien film and the first Predator film. An idea that I came up with, which is something I like to see, would be kind of like how in Predator 1, where we see the Predator rip out Billy's skull and spine. What I think would be pretty gnarly would be if we saw something kind of like that, but with a Predator skinning someone. Like he could heat up his wrist blades with his laser so they're red hot, and then we see like a close-up of a limb and he's cutting off strips of meat off of it like in a kebab shop. And we could see all smoke and bubbling blood and hearing the sizzling of the skin because where his blades are hot. I think that could make for a pretty creepy scene, and that's something I'd like for them to do in a future film, actually make the Predators scary. Number 3 is better special effects. So in regards to the special effects in this movie, it's a bit of an oddball in the fact that in some parts, the special effects are really good for the time, but in other parts they can look really bad. And it's not just a case of good practical mixed with dated CGI like a lot of 90s and early 2000 films. It's more of a mixed bag with some good CG and some bad CG, and some good practical and some awful practical, which leads me to the infamous Predator faces in this movie. Everyone knows it, they just look bad.
Bruh, look at this dude. Wait till you see the. No, 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 no.
I really don't understand how they could go from doing such an amazing job in 1987 with that costume, where it actually looks alive almost, but here in 2004, 17 years later, we get this. Funnily enough, at the time of making this video, that's the same amount of time between AVP coming out and today, 2021. So back then, Predator 1 was as old as AVP is now. So yeah, I think if they brought back if they brought the bad special effects up to the level of the better effects, then it would make for a better movie. Number 4 is make the grid alien a Praetorian. Earlier on in the film, before the Queen is freed and sort of takes over as being the film's main antagonist, the main bad guy alien was the grid alien, the one which is named after the scarring he sustains from a Predator net launcher weapon, and kills 2 of the 3 Predators within the space of about a minute, and is shown to drag away at least a couple of the humans for impregnation by facehuggers, and is kind of like the leader of the drones. But there's no real explanation for why he's noticeably smarter, stronger, and generally more capable than every other drone in the film. So what I do is, instead of him being just another drone, What I'd do is I'd make him a Praetorian instead, which would give us a clear explanation as to why he's more powerful and smarter, on top of giving us another cool Xenomorph type. And if you don't know what a Praetorian is, they look kind of like the halfway point between a drone and a queen, kind of like a mini queen, which can then turn into a queen itself if the current queen is killed. Think like the Pred alien from AVPR, but without the mandibles, dreadlocks or yellow bits. Adding on to this point is number 5, which is don't kill off so many of the predators so soon. As stated earlier, I found it a bit disappointing and anticlimactic when they made a single alien drone just show up and kill off 2 out of the 3 predators within a very short amount of time. Especially where he kills Celtic, the predator leader, in the first actual real fight we see on screen between an alien and a predator. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say the filmmakers were biased or anything like that, but I think it was more along the lines of them being a bit careless and not such good writing, as by doing that, they are kind of saying like, yeah, aliens are better. But I think for the first ever fight, there shouldn't be a clear winner. Like, maybe what they could have done instead is have the same fight scene, and then when Celtic shoots Grid with the net and he crashes through the floor, don't have the predator jump down, and then we just see the alien escape from the net, and then they'd be separated from each other. So we still get the same cool first ever fight, but without one beating the other, to keep it a bit more balanced. And then later on, you could have had one alien kill one predator, and then you could have one predator kill an alien, etc. But not just in the first fight, one wins. Or if you did keep it where Grid does kill Celtic, like in the film, going back to my last point and making Grid a Praetorian, it would make more sense, as a Praetorian is bigger than a drone, and it'd be more like, yeah, one-on-one, a Praetorian probably would win against an inexperienced predator. Number 6 is give the Grid alien a better death. Near the end of the movie, when Scar and Lex have set the bomb and escaped the pyramid, the Grid alien just gets blown up in the explosion along with all the other drones, and it's just the Queen who's left for them to defeat. But again, just like the death of the Celtic predator, I found it to be unfulfilling and just out of the blue. The main drone, who's been such an obstacle before, just gets taken out without much warning and is just gone. Blink and you might have missed it, but we see Grid alongside the other aliens just before they jump on that sled, which takes them to the surface, and that's the last we see of the Grid alien. I think it would have been a better end to the Grid alien story arc if maybe he was the one that attacks Scar from behind and Lex shoots with the bolt gun thing, whatever that's called, getting revenge for Sebastian. Or maybe instead of all them aliens being there, it's just Grid who's followed them out, and Scar does battle with him while the self-destruct device is counting down, while at the same time Lex has to try and remember the code for the control panel, and then Scar defeats Grid, avenging his 2 brothers, and then they get on the sled and escape the bomb. I think that would have been way better. Or if you use my idea about Grid being a Praetorian, maybe rather than him getting blown up and then them fighting the Queen, perhaps we could see Grid transform into a Queen, and then Grid is the Queen they fight at the end, and we could still maybe see hints of his Grid pattern. I think that would be a cool idea too. Number 7 is a bit of a short and sweet one, and that is more fight scenes, like the Grid versus Celtic fight, but I would have liked to have seen maybe another 1 or 2 fights that cool. Maybe like when Scar cuts off that alien's head, maybe that could have been fleshed out into a proper fight scene. And lastly is number 8, which is one that I only noticed this latest viewing, but there are a few times where the characters will pointlessly explain the obvious, even though we can clearly see what's happening. But one of the characters is just flat out telling us, even though it doesn't need to be said out loud. Like where we see the flashback to the past with the ancient predators and humans, we can see what happened, but he's still explaining it all word for word. when I think he could have just said like one sentence and then his voice just fades and then shows the sequence. And there were a few other times this happened as well. It's just very on the nose. Like, we do have eyes, we don't need everything to be narrated for us. This is a gripe with more modern films too, as this is definitely a thing that's gotten worse over time, where there's nothing for us to figure out ourselves, it's all spoon-fed to us. So those were my 8 changes to AVP that, at least to me, would have changed the film from being kind of meh but with some decent bits, to being really good and something fans would have enjoyed more. So why not let me know in the comments if you have any ideas that you think would make AVP into a better film. I know a lot of people say it should have been a straight up movie adaptation of that comic with the woman who joins the Predators, as the movie does take some inspiration from that. Or do you think the film should have just never even been made in the first place? And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to click the like button and sub to the channel if you aren't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.